Okay, pharmacy friends, we're back here. What is going on? We're here for another live episode of Pharmacy Unplugged. We are ready to take your practice to the next level. Today, we have a fun topic for you guys. We're actually talking about something pretty dangerous. I know I love saying that everything is dangerous, but this one actually is dangerous because we have a topic that sounds like something out of a crime drama, except it's real life. Honestly, I hope it's something that none of you guys will ever attempt. It's almost like a crossover episode of a couple of previous topics that we've done, like forgery meets error. That's right, we're talking about pharmacy fraud today, so make sure to stay tuned until the end. As we always do, before we begin, we want to thank you guys for tuning into our show wherever you're tuning in from. Thanks for listening to our show, especially if you guys are here joining us live right now. Get your fake accounts ready, so smash the like button and interact with us as well. We are also on various social media channel. Our previous episodes were all on Spotify as well. Go check it out and pick out some of the topics that interest you. and give it a listen. And we are on air every other Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Although sometimes we might record a little bit more, based on our mood, I guess. But like I said, we're on social media channel. We're on X at Farm Unplugged. We're also on Reddit as well. We also have a website and an email that you guys can interact with us.
Yep, website pharmacyunplugged.com. Check it out. It's not much there though. Just links to all our socials.
But that's our base, right? Like a home base, so you guys can go in there.
Links to our Spotify page, our X, Reddit, and as well as our email, pharmacyunplugged@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to shoot us an email about your thoughts about this show, past shows, and other topics that you want to hear about.
That's right. So, yeah, how was your week?
It's good. It's been really busy, actually.
Oh, yeah?
I find as the weather gets warmer, busier we get.
I finally think that summer might be arriving this year.
Yeah, you weren't looking very hopeful.
I was not looking very
Couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. It feels like I'm seeing you like all the time now, right?
A little bit too much.
Like, I wouldn't say a little bit too much, but like, yes, we're seeing each other quite a lot. So your week was busy, like at work?
Yeah, it was pretty busy. Like a lot of discharges. Before the weekend at least.
Good weather.
Yeah, maybe they just want to get the patients out before the weekend.
Before the weekend. They always discharge people before the weekend, right?
Try to. Yeah. Sometimes you get some weekend discharges.
Thursday and Friday is like a lot of discharges.
Thursday, Friday. Yeah, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many problem patients though. Everyone seems to be in a good mood.
Everyone
could be the weather.
The weather is better. Everybody's in a good mood. I'm in a better mood already. The weather's better, right?
People are more patient. It seems like we'll see how long that lasts.
It's interesting that you're saying that it gets busier when it gets warmer. Doesn't usually die down a little bit when it gets warmer.
You would think like people don't get as sick. Like people get sick.
No, they still get sick. It's just that they're in a better mood, so they don't need medication, right?
Oh, okay.
Like sometimes you feel better and then your infection just goes away, right? Or you don't feel the allergies anymore because you feel better, right? So,
how about you?
I find that this week was busy because there are other stuff that's going on, like I guess non-dispensing related stuff that I had to deal with. So in that regard, it was busy. And yeah, I find that it's interesting because sometimes there is a peak around like May time, like April or May or June. One of the months would be actually busy. I look at like some of the reports in the past as well. Usually only for 1 month, and afterwards it starts dying down a little bit towards the end of the summer, and then it picks up again in fall
September.
Yeah, September, October.
Oh, interesting.
Like, slowly picked up, right? Usually that I find that's the case, right? People start to get sick, and then flu shot season, and then people start to get ready to travel. They need all their medications before they go. So obviously November, December, the busiest, right? So, and then January as well. I find that it's almost like a wave, right?
It'll be interesting to look at different trends in different areas of pharmacies, like pharmacies in different areas, to see, I guess, based on the demographics there and the population
we should
there.
totally do an episode on that actually, and see based on our experience wherever you worked, did you find the same trend? Whichever month is busier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So today, what are we talking about?
We're talking about pharmacy fraud. That's right. It's actually a very broad topic, right? There are different types of fraud. So I feel like maybe we should focus on like one of the narrower topics, like insurance billing and financial fraud kind of thing. There are other types of fraud as well. If you guys are into it, based on how much you guys like it, maybe we'll turn our podcast into like a pharmacy crime podcast and talk about all the crime like in the pharmacy. There are other crime as well, right? Not just fraud and other types of fraud as well. But a lot of them comes down to money.
All the bad apples.
All the bad apples. That's right. And disclaimer though, we're not encouraging you guys to do any of those stuff. Any of the stuff that we talk about is not suggestion that you can actually get away.
Not going to give people ideas.
I don't want to give you guys ideas, but it's something that happens, right? Even if you don't talk about it, it does happen. So I feel like it's something that we should know about.
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about what is fraud, right? Basically lying or deceiving for benefit. I guess that's
for personal gain.
Yeah, for personal, exactly. I think that's the most basic definition. I didn't actually look it up. I should look up like dictionary and what it actually means. And for pharmacy, usually the gain is money, right? We're not talking about error. We're not talking about mistake. We're talking about something that's intentional, right? They're doing this on purpose for like personal gain, money in this case, right? So that's basically fraud. And then if we talk about pharmacy fraud, like I said, it's usually like money, right? It's a form of healthcare fraud. Obviously, we will talk a little bit briefly mention it as well. It doesn't just happen in pharmacy field; it happens in other field as well, actually, right? But pharmacy, because we're so tied to like money and business, our whole we are a healthcare provider for sure, but we're also in the business sector as well, right? We're in a very interesting, I guess, the middle kind of thing. We have to balance both sides. So there are a lot of bad apples, like you said. They would go to the other side, the business side, a little bit too much, and then try to take advantage of the system, I would say.
So basically, looking for maybe a loophole,
Mhm.
or not necessarily following the rules exactly, for a process in which you might receive payment, or finding a way to receive more personal financial gain. So what you're saying though, if we're in pharmacy and in healthcare, and the public place trusts on us in providing that care, are you saying we're held at a higher standard then?
I think we're held in a higher standard just because we're professional, right? Like we're regulated. Even if you don't talk about healthcare professionals, I think any kind of professional that's regulated should be held at a higher standard, especially healthcare as well, right?
So
You're
like,
talking people's
for
health.
example, like I don't want to trivialize it, but like just say a restaurant, just say how would they commit fraud? For example, I tell you this is like some rare fish, right, that you're paying for, but it's actually like, just some random fish from the market.
I just bought it from like around the corner store or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, then I feed that to you, right? And it tastes fine. Right? And you don't know any better. Is that fraud? That's fraud.
Yeah, that's intentional,
fraud,
right?
okay.
For like personal gain. So you're selling something that's really expensive, let's say, right? You're marketing something that's really expensive when it's not, right? So misrepresentation, pretty much,
So you get more financial gain,
right?
but that kind of fraud versus what you're saying, a fraud that has to do with providing care for patients. Are we saying that?
Pretty much like whatever your business model is, right? So in a restaurant, like you said, you're serving fish or like seafood or whatever. For us, it could be like providing healthcare, doing medication review, vaccination, things like that. So like fraud, fake, right?
Okay. But could there be a thought that, like, I'm this is just a hypothetical example, but just in that scenario, I didn't harm the person who bought the fish. I just misrepresented it. So no harm done, and I just gained some money. Is that worse? And is that okay? Like, I guess there's deceit there, but I might be thinking, I didn't really harm them.
I mean, financially, you harm them, right? When you can be selling at a lower price, but you're like marking it up, I don't know, 500% now because it's a
financial
rare fish,
harm.
right? Financial harm,
right?
And a lot of the ones that we talk about today is we're talking about financial harm. We're focusing on fraud that's related to the financial area. There are other types of fraud, like I said, but we can talk about it in other episodes for sure if you guys are interested as well.
Okay.
So, but I guess like financial fraud would be like tax evasion as well for restaurants, right? That's like financial fraud, kind of, right? So,
When they have two tills going on.
right, and they just like whatever income that they are declaring,
Cash
like
only
way less.
restaurant.
Cash only restaurant, right? So they're declaring a lot less incomes. I think we're getting into like too much of the ideas about like
Yeah. Sorry, I just thought of a restaurant business, and not to pick on them, but kind of any kind of could be any kind of business.
any retail, really, pretty much, right?
Right, where you're
Anything that you're open
receiving
for business,
money.
anything that you're receiving service, you're providing service or providing
and receiving
any,
compensation for it.
exactly,
Yeah.
anything that you provide service or goods and receive compensation, right? So we are providing service for compensation as well, right? I would say more so than most of the other healthcare providers, although there are some like private healthcare providers like I guess physiotherapy, chiropractor, even dentists to a certain extent as well, right? Like people pay for the service. But we deal with payment a lot as well. So it's easy to see why people in our pharmacy field can actually commit fraud, I guess, right? So So yeah, we kind of define pharmacy fraud. So basically, personal financial gain in the context of pharmacy operations, right?
Hmm.
So usually intentionally misleading practice, right? That would result in extra reimbursement from insurance providers. In our case, a lot of times it will be the government provider, Ontario Drug Benefit for us because we practice in Ontario, but there are also private insurers as well or third party payers, right? Um, and basically we gain financially through these like falsified service or documentation. That's like pharmacy fraud, right? But if we have to talk about fraud, what is a fraud that's not just a mistake, right? What's the difference between fraud and mistake, right? What if they say, oh, I just made a mistake, right? It's not fraud.
I thought that fish was really from
Right, exactly.
this local island in the Caribbean that
It's
imported.
like this exotic fish that I didn't know that
Right.
it was just around the corner. Whatever,
So,
right? So
fraud versus mistake.
Right.
I guess fraud, like like you said, it's intentional.
right.
That you're knowingly deceiving either that person or in our case, if we're talking about billing insurances, we're knowingly deceiving the system or the company and what we're asking for reimbursement for.
So
Versus just a mistake. Mistake would be like unintentional. You didn't know.
I just made
You didn't
it-
have that
made a
knowledge.
mistake.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think there are a few things that you look at. Number one is intent. We talk about this, right? Second one is pattern as well, right? Mistake is usually one time, but if it's a fraud, it's repeated, right? It's like repeated behavior over time, right? You keep doing it.
You can't have the same mistake over and over again.
You can make the same mistake again, but it should not be over and over again very frequently, right? You see a difference, I guess, kind of, right? So, I mean, if you're going to commit fraud, you're not going to be like, oh, let's do this for like $10, right? They're going to be greedy and be like, let's keep doing this every hour or whatever, right? And just keep the money coming. That's the greed part of it. Like, can you make the same mistake again? Of course you can, right? But it's very unlikely that you're going to make the same mistake every day, right? Like, so maybe like once a year,
Like
you make the
there's
same-
a pattern.
there's a very
to it.
frequent pattern, a
Right.
frequency, right? And the last thing we talk about is benefit, right? Someone's profiting from this. What are you benefiting from making this mistake? Like dispensing the wrong dose of Cipralex, let's say, right? You're not
Right.
making a gain out of this, right? If anything, you risk getting like reprimanded by the college, right? So you're not getting any gain. There's no intent. Hopefully, there's no pattern, right? So if there's a pattern, you're just incompetent, I think, right? So, but yeah, so that's the difference, I think, between the mistake and the fraud.
Very good. So I guess like you said, the common goal is for financial gain,
Yes.
and we're saying in pharmacy it's especially, I guess, a little bit more important.
Because we handle like finance a lot,
Because-
right? We're selling drugs as our business. Our business is provide service for money, which is like selling drugs for money, like drug dealing, basically, right? And we
And
handle
there's
so
this
much
trust
money.
in our profession
There's trust in the profession as well, right? So
to do the right thing ethically, and not to fraud like either patients or the system.
I mean, I guess you can say that we are out of all the professions, healthcare professions at least, right? We are the most retail oriented of all of them. Right? At least the retail pharmacists are, right? If you think about the other providers, let's say the ones I mentioned, maybe physiotherapist, chiropractor, dentist, they also provide service, right? But the problem is they're not selling products. They're not really directly selling goods and products. So we are in an area that we have to be a little bit more careful, I guess, right? Because we deal with finances a lot. Basically, the whole
So-
business is built on that.
Yeah, we work in retail, so we have a mechanism directly to receive reimbursement. Although I guess if we're talking about like doctors, I'm not
They
sure
do-
about like physiotherapists,
They
but
do receive like reimbursement, but it's usually from the government directly, right? For the doctors.
like billing, the
Exactly.
bill
So
system.
we build the system, we build government, we also build private insurance. We also sell products over the counter, right? We also sell all these, also cash paying for like the drugs as well. So we deal with money a lot, I think, versus the other healthcare providers. They deal with the system a little bit more. So, but like you said, the most common goal is financial gain, right? That's the reason why people are committing fraud, at least the financial fraud, right? Like they're trying to get more money,
Just get more money,
right?
to sustain their business.
Who doesn't want more? It's beyond sustaining business, I think, to sustain their like rock star lifestyle, right? Their big house, like fancy
Wait,
cars.
what kind of pharmacist is having rockstar lifestyle?
Well, not me. So we'll talk about it after a little bit.
That's because you're not committing fraud.
That's why, exactly. So, but at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is it actually worth it, right? Like, obviously, everybody wants more
If
money.
you don't get caught.
Well, I mean, like, everybody wants more money, right? But is it really worth it?
If you do get
for
caught,
that?
right?
So, even if you don't get caught, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I just feel bad about like abusing a system like this, right? So,
I guess you make a good point. It's a kind of a slippery slope. Like once they do it once, they get a little bit more reimbursement. Then they might do it again, and they might push it farther to get more reimbursement. And where does that money go?
it's like you're getting deeper and deeper into it. But now you're stuck. You cannot come back out because you're used to getting this money now.
And that money you're probably spending somewhere,
Sustaining your lifestyle.
whatever you're doing with it.
And now you cannot stop,
So now you got to get more.
right? It's like an addiction, an obsession.
It is actually.
Yeah. So addicted to money. So
Where does that fall in terms of our code of ethics?
like do no harm, I guess. Right?
But do no harm to the patient, right?
Well, you're doing harm to the system too, right? So indirectly you're harming the patient. You're wasting taxpayers' money.
Okay.
So I think that's like the big thing. But I also want to mention this, right? There are other types of fraud as well, not just like financial fraud, right? They could be stealing narcotics, right? In the pharmacy, right? That's like fraud as well, which we could have
Maybe
an
for
episode
financial
about.
gain, but maybe they have an addiction
Maybe
as
they have
well.
addiction, exactly. So
Just for
so it might not all be financial gain as well. Could be just like regulatory non-compliance. That's kind of fraud as well, I guess, right? Doing all these like fake documents, not for financial gain, but just to be like, oh yeah, I'm operating a pharmacy like according to standards, but you're not, right? So forging documentation, things like that. So that could also be fraud, right? But we're talking about like money as the motive today, mainly, right? Okay, so I guess we touch upon this as well. Why is it a big deal? Who cares, right? Like, why is it a big deal in pharmacy or in healthcare? But like you said, we operate based on trust, right? Not just people, patients that trust us. Insurance plan, the government, they assume that we are only billing for what we're doing or dispensing, right?
yeah, anybody that is paying us for our services basically trust
Exactly.
that we are doing
providing
that services
providing the right
correctly.
service at the right price, right? Pretty much. But when we actually exploit the system, so it will cost taxpayer money, like I said, right? It costs the patient as well, right? And add unnecessary stress to the system, I think. But for people like us, pharmacies like us that are following the rules, it also actually increase stress as well. Guess what's happening now? Because they're auditing us a little bit more, right? So
Right. Yeah. So
we
if
all have
you're
to deal with that.
if you're a provider, I mean, if you're like an insurance provider, and you start getting these kind of cases, you're going to enact maybe more rules in terms of overseeing the process, because you found that people aren't to be trusted, basically. So yeah, it will affect other pharmacies, like pharmacy audits. Do you get a lot of those?
I mean, I get a lot of like single audits sometimes, right? I'm sure you guys see
Big
a lot
ticket
as well.
items.
Big ticket items, exactly. So usually expensive one, they're not going to audit metformin and Ramipril, right? So they're going to audit like the expensive ones, right? Injection biologics, especially if anything that's the day supply is suspicious, right? Or why is the patient using such high of a dose? I have received one where the insurance actually covered Ozempic, right? For some reason, we billed one Ozempic for 1 day. So, and then we immediately get audited, right? So I didn't actually send anything. I just reversed the billing and changed it to 28 days and bill it again. So, and then I assumed that was fine.
I think that's okay.
So, I mean, like if they want to audit me, they would send it in again, right? So,
Well, you cancel that transaction. So that means that transaction is not paid for anymore.
well, technically I reversed it and then rebill it again.
But that's a separate transaction now.
it is, I guess. Yeah. So
So if
the
they want to
prescription
audit,
number is
if
the
they want to
same.
audit that,
Yes.
oh, it is.
Prescription number is the same,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Transaction is different, but prescription is the same,
Oh, I
right?
see.
So I guess if they want to audit that, they will send it in again, right? So because I fixed it, the day supply is wrong.
Oh.
So, but yeah, so they usually audit the expensive ones, like you said, right? And we did an audit, right? I told you, I think, where one of the insurance providers selected 20 random prescriptions that we had to send in. Usually the ones that's a little bit more expensive as well. I didn't actually know the outcome of it. I finished everything. They gave us 2 weeks. I just finished it in like a week and sent it in. But I should actually message them and see what the outcome was. They were holding like a lot of money. So I hope that the store doesn't lose money for that. Anyway.
They were withholding money like for future payments.
Yeah, so they basically said that they will withhold us whatever amount. I think in our case was like $7,000 from the next payment until we figure this out, right? So because they're constantly paying us anyway, so they just like withhold $7,000 until they sort it out and see how much they will actually approve. So sometimes they'll find some like random issues. I've heard from some other pharmacies that they said that the doctor's address is wrong, or like some really minor stuff that
Now they're just trying to just save
right?
money.
But
themselves.
how can you actually argue that, right? I mean, sure, the doctor's prescription pad is like a different different address, but what if the doctor moved? I know that, right? So I changed the address already, right?
Yeah.
Or what if you said, patient's address is different, right? But I was like, but patient told me they moved, so I changed it on my file, right? Am I supposed to use the wrong address?
Yeah, I feel like that's
On the
unreasonable.
prescription, right? So
Versus if you can't find a prescription at all,
Right.
then that's suspicious.
yeah, but they get all these reasons to actually take away money from you, right?
So now that's taking it too far the other way.
I feel like it is. I have not seen the report yet, so I don't actually know. So I'll actually find out, and then I guess I can share it with you guys.
So it's possible that these audits are happening or may happen more often if people are committing more fraud or
course.
pharmacies are committing more fraud.
Yes.
But
You would too, right? If you're the provider.
taking to the extreme, then they can also use that as a reason to just withhold money, even if it's like a silly reason like wrong doctor address.
Exactly. Right. So, or even just withholding money for some pharmacy would be problematic as well, right?
you
So
got
a
bills
bigger
to pay.
pharmacy, exactly. You have bills to pay. Bigger pharmacies might be okay, whatever. Just like hold it for now, and then I'll just like figure it out. We'll deal with it and until you release it, whatever, right? So yeah, so that adds unnecessary stress to us as well, even if we're following the rules. So that's why we care about the fraud, I guess, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a frontline pharmacist, so I don't really see as many of these audits. And I guess for me, if I'm just an employee, and we can get to some of the examples later on, but if I commit fraud, like if I have some false billing that benefits the pharmacy, it doesn't really benefit myself because I just get paid like a salary or whatever, right?
it's very unlikely that staff would actually commit fraud, I think, right? Unless you have
Some
ownership.
mechanism.
You have ownership in the store, right? Or
Right.
there's some kind of financial gain, which we'll actually talk about in one of the cases where you are actually getting financial benefit directly, right?
Right.
You're not going to commit fraud for the store to get financial benefit,
Yeah.
right? At least I hope you're not dumb enough to do that, right? So without any gain, not that you should be doing it for any gain, but it's more likely that these people have financial gain directly. So they must have shares in the store. They're like one of the owners.
Yeah, unless you get a cut of it.
Right, exactly. Or they get paid directly by from the benefit somehow, right? But we can talk about types of pharmacy related financial fraud, right? So first one, I guess, is fake prescription or falsified prescription. Okay. So in this case, we have real patient. Patient is real, right? But the prescription is fake. Okay. So we are submitting claims for medication that were never prescribed, never dispensed, right? So you have the patient file, right? You're just submitting all these, I don't know, antibiotics or chronic medication, just like keep building chronic medication that patient never actually received, never even were prescribed in the first place, right? Some of the cases that, some of the articles, they would use retired doctor or even doctor who passed away, right? As well, or even practicing doctors, right? They're just like billing through fake prescriptions pretty much. So that's like the first type, right? Fake prescriptions. So And then the other type would be like dispensing without documentation, as in like you didn't actually dispense the product, right? So in this case, the patient is real.
What's the difference?
So patient is still real, right?
Okay.
Prescription is also real. So you have a prescription,
Okay.
but the patient didn't actually receive the product because let's say the patient said, "Oh, I don't actually need this," right? Or can you just put on
but you
file?
build it through.
You build it through, right?
Mm.
Can you just put on file? Oh, my doctor said that I don't need this right now. I just need the other one, right? Like a lot of times you see that, right?
Yeah.
So they prescribe antibiotics and a nasal spray, and then they will say, "Oh, my doctor said just a nasal spray. If it doesn't get better, then I'll get the antibiotics in a few days." But you build both of them anyway. If they don't come back, you're just like, whatever. I built it already, right? So you didn't actually dispense the medication. So in this case, the patient is real. Prescription is also real, unlike fake prescription. But the act of dispensing is fake, right? So you're submitting claim for something you never actually dispensed. So that's like another type of fraud. I guess there's a third type, which is like fake patient, right? So actually, it could involve real or fake patient, ghost patient, let's call it, right?
What's a ghost patient?
So the patient actually never received a service in this case, right? So let's say you're billing MedCheck, right? A service like MedCheck. Patient never came in. There's real patient here, right? In your pharmacy, but the patient never actually came in, never actually received a service, but you actually billed it, right? So that's one of them. The other one is fake patient, right? You would think that you cannot bill fake patients, but you can actually bill fake patients, right? You
What
can
do you
actually
mean,
have
how?
fake patient file.
Like
and
to the
bill-
government or?
Yeah, to the government. You can build flu shot and COVID vaccine because there's a code you can actually use, right? For us,
Okay.
So,
yeah.
right? For patients who don't actually have a health card.
Naloxone kits.
Yeah, naloxone kit. For them, for ones that don't actually have a health card, there's actually a pseudo code, like pseudodin, whatever, for us that you can actually
Yeah,
build.
yeah, you're right.
So that could be fake patient. You can just create a fake patient and start billing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just not that much financial gain, I guess. Naloxone kit maybe. a little
Naloxone
bit
kit you
more.
get quite a
Yeah,
bit.
Yeah, naloxone kit's quite a bit as well, right? But it adds up, right? Just imagine you build like 5 vaccines a day for like fake patients, right? That's like what, $70 per day, right? Adds up over like a term. That's like a lot of money as well, right? So that's why I call it like ghost patients, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much.
I'm just trying
most
to
of
think
them.
through the scenarios, like of each one and how you would get caught with it.
Will you get caught?
I'm just thinking like just say the fake and falsified prescription. So that's when you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a real patient,
Yeah.
but the prescription is not real.
There's no real prescription.
So I bill through
Yeah.
I can bill the government metformin.
Mhm.
This will show up in the patient record though,
It will, exactly.
in the
Yeah.
government's database. So like say on Ontario, connecting Ontario.
Now it's better because
It'll
you're
show up.
connecting Ontario. In the past,
In
there
the
was
past, it was.
exactly
Yeah.
there. You cannot actually check.
But the
this.
patient wouldn't know
The patient wouldn't know.
unless they. How would they know?
They wouldn't.
Another pharmacy, when they look at the profile, they might ask the patient, "Hey, I see you got metformin at this
A
pharmacy."
doctor might actually check. Oh, yeah, you're taking metformin. You're like,
It's
what
like,
are you
no, I
talking
didn't.
about? Exactly.
Right,
So that's how
right.
I guess you can get caught. So I guess in that case, it will be less
There's
likely.
mechanisms
Yeah.
where you can get caught.
Of course.
Dispensing without documentation. What do you think?
So
What's that?
this one
Is-
is a little bit harder to get caught, right? Actually, we should go through like how people actually get caught with these things. I'm telling you, it's making it sound like that we're trying to like encourage people to commit fraud, but we're not, right? Even though we're
Now I'm wondering why there's not more fraud.
there are actually ways you can actually catch the thing. You can do audits. There are certain audits that you can actually do. I guess we can go through it afterwards as well, like a whole list of stuff.
Sure.
Interesting that I think I mentioned like MedCheck, right? Do you consider excessive billing of MedCheck as fraud?
So we talked about MedCheck last episode.
Exactly, right? Like we also talk about doing a lot of MedCheck, right, to meet certain targets. So what if you're obviously if you're not billing, not doing it, but billing like ghost patient, that's fraud, right? What if you're doing it in a way that patient doesn't actually receive any benefit, or like, okay, just sign here.
Because the patients
Do you
don't
have any
know the ins and outs of what the service
Right.
should entail.
Right.
They just you can present it. You can misrepresent what they're signing for, such as
I just want to update your profile.
here's a list of your medications.
Do you have any questions? I just want to update your profile. So,
Exactly. You have any questions on it? Take a look, and then here, sign here.
exactly. They're
Right.
okay. Like sign, right? So you build it, but they don't have any questions. They said, right? You didn't actually. Did you actually provide a service? I don't really know. So obviously,
It's hard to
based on
prove.
based on MedCheck definition, you did not provide the medication review for the patient,
It's hard to
right?
prove. How are you going to police that?
But it's hard to prove, right? So
But yeah, I would consider that fraud.
that's also fraud as well, right? So it's like a very I guess, gray area, right? So some of the pharmacies are doing like tons of medication reviews a day, right? So, and then they cannot find documentation, right?
Yeah.
Because it's stored somewhere else. So, like, no documentation.
Yeah, I think obviously if it's a process where it's hard to prove
Mhm.
or it's hard to get caught,
Mhm.
then you're going to have more of that. And yeah, something like meds checks, if we present it that way and patients just sign and you just bill through,
Mhm.
then you can definitely increase your numbers.
Mhm.
But then again, it's who's going to come, who's policing meds checks? Nobody.
Mhm. No, that's right. You're right.
So it's easy to get away with that type of fraud if it's happening out there.
So sometimes we'll talk about it later as well, how you actually like catch these things. If you bill excessively, there must be a mechanism that triggers audit, right? It's unreasonable for a pharmacy to bill like, I don't know, 15 a day, or like suddenly you start billing a lot more, right? So do you have that many staff to actually justify doing this, right?
I mean, even if you're like just say you're giving out flu shots, but they don't have, say, a citizen card here for you to bill, a health card for you to bill, you still need to have documentation of like who came in for it.
Exactly, assessment, patient
Yeah.
signed it, whatever, right? So
Versus the naloxone kit that we mentioned, you don't need anything for that. So if someone's going to commit fraud, you'll probably go towards that. Basically, anything that's harder for people to really prove that's happening.
But there's a way that you can actually catch it, which I'll talk about afterwards.
Okay.
So we have a few articles that you guys can actually read. You're going to post it on the Spotify link, right?
Yeah, I'll post it on link.
Yeah, so we have a few articles that we went through. A couple of them are actually quite interesting. One of them is the fake vaccination record that you sent me. So basically, during the COVID pandemic in Quebec, one of the pharmacy owners hired a couple of pharmacy students to use his secure access key to actually enter vaccination record. Hence the topic title of this episode. The student actually did it, not me, right? So one of the students actually exploited this access and falsified over 300 COVID vaccination record in Quebec, right? Creating fake vaccination record for, I guess, I didn't write down the number, but I think it was like over 150 people, sometimes for payment as well, right? So he was first doing it for family and friends, eventually snowball into doing it for acquaintances, people contacting him apparently through like social media, Snapchat. He started like collecting money, financial gain in that case, right? For the fake record, basically. So started off as like helping people he knew. I wouldn't consider that helping though. I guess like helping out, whatever. But quickly turned into like full blown fraud operation here. There you go.
So
Okay.
basically, like during the pandemic, a lot of jurisdictions required like a vaccine passport
Exactly, to
or
travel,
proof of
to
vaccination,
do certain activities,
going
kind
to
of thing, right?
restaurants,
Exactly.
going on doing things, even entering malls. I remember that here in Toronto.
Was it? What were there? I don't
Yes.
know. I don't remember.
Yeah, they have. I remember there's
I was just busy working all the time. I was just like, why people hang out in the mall anyway? Like
there was
right?
actually not a lot of people in the mall during that time, but there would be people at the front, checking like, oh, do you have your vaccine passport?
Wow. I'm like, it's just like spreading virus all over the place. I'm just like not going to go to the mall, right? I guess people who don't believe in virus, whatever.
Yeah.
But
So I guess some people who weren't comfortable with getting the vaccine but still wanted to participate in social activities, these were the people that were willing to pay money for this student. I think it was one or two students. One student definitely admitted to it, but the second one said they had nothing to do with it, even though they were part of using the owner's code to enter the records, to enter the vaccine records. So they would pay this student under the table for them to enter into the
system,
record, the
show that
system,
they
to show
actually
that
had
they
the-
got the
exactly.
vaccine, which I think is a pretty good idea by that student to capitalize on that population. Because how would you get caught in that case? The person who's receiving that falsified record
would
will
never
never rat on you, because
Of
then they're
course.
ratting on themselves of not getting it.
Exactly.
And then if you're the one receiving the money for it, you're not going to say anything either. Because again, you're just outing yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. So how did this unravel?
But I'm not encouraging like any students to actually commit this, or any pharmacy profession, anyone in pharmacy profession to actually choose to do this. I don't actually, I wouldn't actually congratulate a student, right? So it's actually not that smart, to be honest with you, right? So how did it actually come out, right? So basically, one of the patients, I think she went to update her vaccination record. She claimed that she was vaccinated in Ontario. I guess she was from Ontario, maybe, right? So she thought that she bought the vaccination record from Ontario. So she claimed that she was actually vaccinated in Ontario. But when the person who was looking into the record checked the system, they saw that she actually got vaccination in Quebec, or the record was documented from Quebec, right? So there's discrepancy there. I guess that's the first step that I actually noticed what was going on, and then they investigated that pharmacy, right? Why would this person getting vaccination in Ontario be entered as a patient in the Quebec pharmacy, right? So I guess that's how it actually came out.
Yeah, the article says the fraud was uncovered after a patient visited a West Montreal vaccination center. So they're in Montreal. They're going to this vaccination center, and they're to have their doses of vaccine she allegedly received in Ontario entered in her file. So
she claimed that was received in Ontario, but on her file it's already updated that was received in Quebec, some kind of like small Quebec pharmacy.
So how did this patient? So this person, we're thinking she knowingly paid the student to enter into her file, but that pharmacy is in Montreal, right?
In Quebec somewhere. Yeah.
So why would she say she got it from Ontario?
She didn't know, maybe, right? Maybe she's from Ontario. She thinks that it's like maybe she got it through a friend, whatever, and then she thought, oh, it must be in Ontario because my friend's from Ontario or whatever. I live in Ontario, so
right, because she never actually went to the pharmacy.
Exactly.
Right, it was just billed through.
Exactly. So she didn't know where they actually built it, right? So that's, I guess, how it came out. So what was the outcome of that? I think the pharmacist
pharmacist who hired these students as volunteers was fined.
That's right. They didn't
for
he
sharing
didn't even pay the students.
For sharing their login credentials.
$15,000.
Yeah.
For lack of supervision and poor judgment.
Now, on the students' part, were their names aren't even in this article?
No.
And it doesn't say what happened to them.
It wasn't clear. Maybe he got revoked.
So,
I'm not sure.
what do you think about that?
Like, what would you do though if you're at the college? Right?
I would publicize their names.
Wouldn't you revoke them? Be like, you cannot register.
Well, this article seems like you can't even mention their names. Would they not mention their names if they were allowed to?
They didn't mention their names. I don't know. You're right. They didn't mention the names. So
I would revoke their
registration, right? Like, ability to register.
Yeah. Right. And I think what the college needs to do as well, though, is also give them a chance to reform. So
so like not really revoking, but just like
suspending
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until you take this ethics course. But why what you did is not good. And is fraud. And once you complete that course, you can get your license back.
That's usually the case, right?
Is that's usually how it goes, right?
Very light punishment.
But I'm just wondering why they won't even put their names here. So, but unfortunately, it's the owner who apparently had no idea they were doing this, and I guess I believe that. Apparently, through this investigation, the college also agrees that the owner was not aware. What they're nailing the owner for is sharing their login credentials.
Or lack of supervision that's leading your staff to do this.
Yes.
Right? To doing this. But you're right. I think the reason why they didn't actually share their names was because the college decided not to revoke them, right? Or ban them from like registration. Like if
there was no punishment.
I mean, maybe suspension or whatever. You take ethics course, like you said, right? But what's the point of releasing their names if you're going to do this kind of like give them a chance to reform, right? Imagine if your name is broadcasted all over the place, right?
But
Because,
if you're a pharmacist and
but they're not pharmacists yet, right? I think that's the problem. So it's like a minor committing a crime. So in their eyes, I think that's what it is, right? I'm not saying they're doing anything that's right. To be honest with you, I think they should be punished harshly too.
they do not register as a pharmacist yet, is
I
what you're
honestly
saying,
think that
and
they should
that's
not be
why.
allowed to register for like a long time. What?
Do you,
So
you don't believe in reform?
I believe in reform, but like you should have to have harsher punishment before reform, right? So,
It doesn't say what happened to the students. Yeah.
but I also understand they don't want them to be harassed, right? Like imagine all these people are like, oh, now you're the guy who actually like got like $50 whatever for like entering this like fake vaccination record. You're famous for that, right? So,
But I mean, doesn't that come with isn't that the risk you take? Like any crime that's
I guess
you're
that's
you're
I
committed.
guess that would be
for.
like the harsher punishment, like I said, right? Like
Yeah.
the social shaming, whatever,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So I would say they should be banned from like getting licensed for like at least for a long time.
So it really doesn't say exactly. It doesn't say what happened to the students. It does say that I guess they put some sort of punishment on the owner. And I guess they would have to investigate to see the patients. It doesn't say what happened to those patients
That's
either.
true.
Who paid them?
That's right. That's
Because they're also
falsifying stuff,
they're knowingly
Mm-hmm.
committing fraud as well.
potentially spreading virus to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's they should be.
Doesn't say
arrested.
any of that. Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one,
Mhm.
right? Because I mean, if two students came into your pharmacy and said they would like to volunteer, you don't need to pay them. They'll hold your vaccine clinics. They really want to help out the community. This was during the height of the pandemic.
That's why
You as an owner, you'll be like, this is great.
that's
Look,
great.
look at
of
the
course,
next
right?
generation of students are so eager to help out for free.
Mm-hmm.
They're volunteering their time. Like and you may share your code,
I'd
right?
say
Just do it for easy
I would
ease of
do,
access.
Actually, yeah, I would too. Share the code, whatever.
Well,
But
if
you know
you
what?
didn't
This
renew
is
that,
too good to be true, right? Why are they doing it for free?
that's because you're a suspicious person. But if you weren't as suspicious of people's ulterior motives, you might look at it straight and be like, "Huh, look at these two guys."
Maybe. You know what?
Very
I
good.
think we already established that I have trust issues. But that's why my pharmacy, I've never actually hired, like, I've never actually had like volunteer, except like students sent in by the school, right? I don't accept volunteers. Some people like come in and be like, oh, do you look like volunteer? I want to volunteer for pharmacy. I was like, no,
Just so I can get access to all your drugs.
right? Or sometimes they might be
Is that
genuine.
why?
They want to learn the system, right? Like
Right,
maybe
right.
they're from a different country. They want to learn the system, or like they want to go to pharmacy school in the future. They want experience on
Why
the
don't you
resume.
take them?
I just feel like people are more focused if you have something to lose. So if you have a
Okay,
job,
that's
if you're
good.
paid, right?
Yeah.
So I believe in that more. So I usually would just decline.
To maybe more responsible.
But I would tell them, you know what? Yeah, I would
More
tell them, you know what?
accountable.
If right now, if I'm not hiring right now, but I'll keep your resume. If
That's
I'm
right.
hiring,
That's right.
I'll invite you to
That's
an
good.
interview or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but sometimes you know what? It's expensive to hire people as well, right? So some of the owners may be like, oh yeah, free labor. Let's come. Let's go. Right? Like free students.
Would
let's
you still
do
get them to
vaccination.
sign a contract
For what though?
as a volunteer? Just some record of them.
That I work here for free
Yeah.
with no reimbursement.
It's the same contract as your employees, except your salary is $0.
Okay. So I don't know. Why they sign the contract though? Right? So
Okay. Any other examples of
well, there are a couple more articles, but we're not going to go through like all of them. Basically,
let's go through one more?
there's a global news piece as well. You can actually watch. I think there are videos on there for those of you who like videos. So there are some pharmacists in Ontario who have been scamming the program, Ontario Drug Benefit Program,
Okay.
the government program, right?
How?
Taking money is being pocketed. So what they're doing is basically what one of the examples that we're saying, right? So maybe they were dispensing medication or like processing medication without a prescription, first of all, right?
Okay.
So fake prescription, like I said. The other one could be falsified documentation, a lack of documentation, like we said, right? So there was a prescription, but the patient didn't actually need the medication, right? You just billed it anyway. So you're just processing all these things without even having the medication in stock or without even like using up the medication in stock, right?
Mhm.
So you're just getting financial gain through that. So I think these were the only things, the two main things basically,
So
right?
what happened? How did they?
So they actually built a lot. What one guy apparently like built over $1 million, right? Or one person built over $1 million and didn't even lose the license. Was allowed to return to work, like you said, reform, right? So take this ethics course. Don't do this again. Who knows? They might start doing it again, right?
So they're billing. So again, they're billing for things that they don't actually have.
Yeah, or sometimes they were billing for things that they didn't actually dispense, right? They
Mhm.
might have it, but they just didn't never dispense it, right? They just bill it because I have a prescription, right?
But they're
Or
billing
a
under a
fake prescription.
patient's profile.
They're billing under patient profile. That's
So it'll
correct. Yeah.
show up in the record.
It will show up on the record, yes. But you can inactivate, delete it, or inactivate it, right?
No, but in say connecting, for example, like we mentioned connecting Ontario.
But right now
How
it
do
will
you-
be
how do
harder to do, right?
So was
Like
this
you
like
said.
before?
I think this was a little bit before in 2010 maybe
Mhm.
to like 2020. So before Connecting Ontario was like a big thing. So we have a system Connecting Ontario here
Mhm.
where you can actually check like lab values, medication use, like prescribed basically dispensed by pharmacy, services that has been provided as well. It's funny because one time I think there's I think a nursing home or whatever and call and they'd be like, oh, can you fax me the meds check that you've done for this patient?
Okay.
I was like, well, I didn't do a meds check for this patient. And they're like, oh,
Oh.
but there was still like service, right? And I was like, okay. And I look at it, I was like, that's not a meds check. It's like a pharmaceutical opinion. I'm trying to explain what pharmaceutical opinion was
Oh, okay.
to them. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, but it showed there's like a thing. I was like, yes, there was something billed, but it was not a meds check. So, but anyway, back to the thing. But a lot of pharmacies, I think, did this as well, billing like fake prescriptions, pretty much. Right?
Okay.
Sometimes actually unintentionally, right? What I say is when patients say, "Oh, I'll pick up the medication," yes, process it, right? So they process it, and then they never come to pick up. You call them, be like, "Well, your medication is here. Are you picking it up?" They're like, "Yes, I'm picking up," right? But they don't pick it up, right? So and then that goes on, and then in the past, you remember like how Ontario government there's like a limit of when you can actually reverse it, right? And now you have to send in like manual reversal. For some insurance as well, I think if it past certain time, you cannot actually reverse in the system, right? So a lot of pharmacies would just leave a note on the file saying that patient, this is return to stock. Patient said they'll pick it up, but never did because now my outbox is full of all these things, right? So they have to like return to stock, which honestly most pharmacies do as well. That's not intentional though, right? Because that's patient said they're going to come pick it up, but it never did.
So this global article, I didn't read this ahead of time, but I'm reading it now. I guess there's a few cases that they outline. One of which is by this pharmacist Aymin Amin. I'm reading that she overbilled
Well, you're
the
naming names
government
too, huh?
for nearly $1 million. It's in the article, which we're going to share. So I guess it's in public record. But she billed the government for nearly overbilled by $1 million.
Right, exactly. Like mistake would not be over by that much, right? So
How did she do this? She overbilled for huge quantities of drugs and products,
continuously.
and then she misled ministry inspectors. Yet the only punishment she received from the college was suspension of license for 16 months. Okay, almost a year and a half, and a $5,000 fine. She ran a pharmacy in a city here called Mississauga for more than a decade before the ministry found she overbilled $900,000 in a period of 2 years. Fake invoices as well that overstated wholesale drug purchase. So I guess billing for prescriptions that don't exist, and then you're also faking the books saying that you did receive the inventory.
That's right. So
I wonder how did they get caught though? Like how just say I bill your file. How would you know?
So if we're talking about how people get caught, we can talk about that. We can talk about how people get caught.
That's what the article doesn't really get into that.
Yeah, so there are a few.
I guess they don't want to
ways
give people ideas about how to
avoid them.
Yeah.
So basically from audits, right? So there are things that would trigger audits. So I think they have a system to detect overbilling, right? So they will compare I mean, like, I'm not in this business, but I think they're very smart. They probably algorithm to actually figure it out as well. So let's say for a pharmacy your size, how much should you be billing, right? And versus like basically, are you on par with the other pharmacy? You might bill a little bit more, sure.
What do you mean,
right?
like pharmacy our size? How can you know? Like by square foot or?
No, but like by so let's say if you're billing government excessively, right?
Just
So
say I actually do 50 scripts a day, but I'm billing 200 scripts a day.
mhm.
How would they know?
So
Why can't I be a 200 script a day store?
you could be, of course, yes, but if you're doing 200 prescriptions a day, don't you think that you bill private insurance as well, and also the government, like kind of in a certain ratio? So you could absolutely do 200. You could do even more, right? So how could you do 200 prescriptions a day when like 199 of them are like government prescription, right? That would be like one of the things as well. And they usually overbill certain things, expensive items, right? So they have a system to actually detect that. The other way, like you kind of mentioned, was actually the invoices as well, right? They can compare your purchase invoice from your supplier versus what was actually dispensed, right? So if you look at the purchase invoice, how do you actually dispense, I don't know, 50 prescription of this product when you order it only once, right? Like where are you receiving
They
the
fake
rest
their
from?
invoices as well.
Right, they fake invoices, exactly. So that's why that would trigger an audit in the first place, right? So maybe they'll fake the invoice and send in the proof as well, but that would be one of the red flags, I think, right?
I think some of these pharmacies took it too far. Like I'm scrolling through this article here by Global News, which we'll put a link in the show notes on Spotify. Apparently, the links don't really work on YouTube for some reason. I have to figure that out.
Oh, really? Not even on the comment section?
No, it just cuts it off if the link is too long. But on Spotify for sure.
So
looks
one
like
of the links,
looks like this pharmacy bill drugs for dead patients
yeah, so
as
like
well as
billing
birth
discrepancy
control
for seniors,
for
for
men.
male, exactly.
So I guess that would trigger it.
So discrepancy and anomalies, right? Also maybe statistical outliers, right? So unusually high volume of high cost items, right? So can you do 200 scripts a day? Sure, but out of 200 scripts, what's the percentage of high cost items, right? Like biologics, let's say, right? You're not a pharmacy specializing in biologics. You cannot bill like 20% of the prescription are biologics. That makes no sense, right? So if you compare that to like an average pharmacy, that's what I guess I was referring to, right? So let's say an average pharmacy would do like, I don't know, 1% of their prescription is biologic. If you're doing 100 script, that may be 1. If you're doing 200 script, that would be 2, right? You cannot be doing 200 scripts and like 50 of them are biologics because you're not a specialized pharmacy. So that would trigger an audit as well, the statistical anomaly.
So do you think just like pushing it too far would trigger it? Whereas if they just perhaps weren't as greedy, then you might not get noticed.
It will be a little bit harder to catch if you're not as greedy, obviously, right?
But it could be a slippery slope because then you think you can take it farther and farther because you're not getting caught.
Greed is like exactly right. It's a thing that you get into. It's like you're addicted to money now, right?
So none of these people looks like criminally charged. And looking at explanations of some of these pharmacists, including the one we just mentioned, she explained that there was her family situation. She was a family sole provider, had a lot of kids. And so she was going through difficult circumstances. Looks like that's a theme for a lot of these pharmacists here. And therefore the college takes, I guess, some sympathy to that. And just most of them are just license suspensions. And they go back to work maybe a year and a half later.
I guess you give them a chance to actually like reform, right? Like you said. And they would just monitor them a little bit more closely, right?
But it doesn't say anything about recouping all those like $1 million.
They should pay it back though, no? I think they would have to before they can actually go back to work. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like it says here, one pharmacist just declared bankruptcy, and that was that.
Because you cannot pay them back, right? So
maybe they just shifted the money elsewhere, and you don't know where it is.
Sometimes they
where the money go?
Like
the lifestyle,
kind of the lifestyle, exactly, right?
It's blown.
Expensive car,
booze and cars.
Exactly. So sometimes we're talking about billing government, right? But sometimes they also bill private insurance as well. But the system is improving. Like you said, there's Connecting Ontario for the government.
Mhm.
There's also notification from the private insurance as well. So sometimes the
Yes.
patient will actually get notified
Yeah.
that, oh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have billed like this much. Because sometimes patient would ask, right?
They can
They're
go
like,
online as well. There's an online portal for
yeah,
them to see
they can
all
check
the,
like what was
yeah.
billed under the thing. I guess they're trying to close the loophole a little bit, which was good.
It's
as
good.
well, right?
More documentation, transparent documentation, including notifying the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's harder to get away with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So that's most of the stuff we talk about for the fraud. Again, we'll post the articles. You guys can give it a read. Take a look at it when you guys have time. There are actually a scenario where the patient could be part of the fraud as well.
I was
Right.
just about to say, like, yeah, what if, like, sure, you can notify the patient all you want, but what if they're part of it as well?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're not going to say anything, and then you split the profits.
Did we actually learn about this in class as well? I think what happened was sometimes they would bring in prescriptions, right? So they would give it to the pharmacy. They know the pharmacy can bill, but they don't actually need the product. So in return, what I think I've heard of this from like an accountant. What the pharmacy would allow the patient to do is to actually like get products, right? Over-the-counter products. That's
You're
worth
trading.
less. Exactly, you're trading. So if I give you a prescription that's worth $50, how much?
I'm not going to take my Lipitor.
Right. Okay. So how
You're going to
much
bill
I
it for $50,
mm-hmm.
and then in exchange, you give me some products over the counter for free.
Toothpaste or whatever.
Yeah.
Like right, Tylenol and stuff like that. So I think I've heard of that from an
Cash.
accountant. Cash even right. So so patient could be actually part of it as well, which makes it even harder to catch.
What if the doctor's a part of it too?
Like how? Oh, they send.
I'm
like,
going to send you write all
prescription.
these prescriptions
Mhm.
that you don't need.
But the patient will be notified sometimes when you.
No,
actually
the
bill it.
patient and the doctor and the pharmacy,
like
all three.
More people involved, it's a little bit harder to
Control.
control, I think, right? Of course, like doctors could be involved in this. Well, one of the articles actually, the Toronto Star article at the end,
Yeah.
they will talk about other professions as well. I don't think they talk about doctors,
Okay.
but there are dentists, chiropractors, physiotherapists billing for services that they didn't actually provide.
Didn't actually provide.
Exactly.
That's right.
So it's not just in pharmacy, but other healthcare providers can actually do that as well. But obviously, we have our code of ethics, right?
Yeah.
And again, I have to say, I do not recommend doing any of these.
I think
stuff.
insurance
It's not
fraud
worth
is
it.
like, yeah, very rampant. I mean, that industry must be so hard to control
Mhm.
or to investigate.
Mhm.
Like, there's people that, kind of off topic, but if you have an insurance plan, but you don't use those services,
Mhm.
you can collect, I guess, receipts from other people who do use those services, perhaps,
Mhm.
right? And then have them bill it through there. I guess prescriptions is harder to do that because you're going to have like your name and all that.
Mhm.
But
Everything is like in the record. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if the patient's a part of it, that's a problem. Harder to catch. The more people that are part of it, it's harder to catch. But it's
But-
also harder to control what everyone does in the future. Like, you never know when people are going to change it and someone might slip up.
Exactly. So it's also harder to actually like hold it together, kind of thing,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
scheme when more people are involved. So,
If everybody's getting paid, then the scheme goes well. No one says anything.
mhm.
As soon as something goes wrong in that business plan of theirs, the agreement, someone's not getting a cut.
It's
As
or
much.
as much exactly like or whatever originally proposed, right? And then
Yeah.
people get angry, and that's how
That's-
the thing
unravels.
unravel, right? That's how they get exposed. So
So bottom line, don't commit fraud.
don't come from. Of course, I said that from the beginning, right? So yeah, that's I think
Yeah,
most of the stuff we want to
about
talk
it.
about today.
Cool.
If you guys have any
We'll post links
questions or
to the
comments,
articles.
let us know. Any future topics that you want us to talk about, let us know as well. And if you guys like this, give it a thumbs up. Maybe we'll talk about more kind of fraud and crimes in the pharmacy in the future as well. So that's pretty much all the time that we have.
When's our
this
next
week.
episode? 2 weeks from now, probably.
Maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet. Actually, we don't actually decide until like we get closer to the thing. We don't even know what we want to talk about.
I promised to post a link on YouTube earlier for each episode so that people will get notifications. So yeah, follow us on YouTube.
You know what we should do? We should post like a future date. Like 2 years from now and all these topics, and people can actually see which one, and then they can tell us, oh, this is good, you should do this next. Right?
Okay.
We should post like 10 different episodes, 10 different topics that we'll eventually do anyway, but in no order, right?
Particular
Everyone is
Okay.
like 2026, the end of like December 31st, and then you guys see it and you'll be like, oh, I want this first. You can request it. How about that? I
Make
think
sure
that's
to follow
fun.
us on Spotify as well,
Yeah.
where all our episodes are on. And yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. That's all the time we have. Thanks so much for listening. Until next week, have a good week, guys.
Cool.